Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for October 22nd, 2024. First off, today we're going to go to some research that was done at BYU in 2017 and was highlighted in an article at Psychology Today. First of all, this article says PORN a lot, which I substituted for adult material and then for AM because I don't want my video to get taken down. It says, research from Brigham Young University examines the role of adult material use, self-perceived addiction to adult material, and religion on relationship anxiety. The results were surprising and confirmed a building school of research that indicates that the effects of adult material on individuals vary based on moral and religious beliefs, and that seeing oneself as addicted to adult material is far more damaging than actually using it. Lenhart, Willoughby, and Young-Peterson did a large cross-sectional survey of 686 single adults using the M-Turk system. They were investigating what effects AM use and the belief that one was addicted to AM had on an individual's relationship anxiety. That religious conservative background leads people to overestimate the harm and shame attached to AM use and to experience greater distress related to AM use, which they label as an addiction. One study at a Christian college found that 60% of Christian males seeking help for AM-related problems viewed themselves as addicted, although only 5% of those men met any of the criteria related to addictive disorders. Recent research has found that belief in oneself as an AM addict is predicted by religious values, not by use, and that this perception of oneself as addicted predicts negative emotional outcomes, while actual AM use does not. The BYU study found further results which support the idea that it's not use, but rather the belief in AM addiction and the conflict with religion which predict problems. In this study, they found that perception of AM addiction is more important than actual AM use in predicting many outcomes, and that the level of religious belief was especially important in predicting negative outcomes from use. What's fascinating is that already several critiques of this study's findings have been published online, coming from people who promote the AM addiction concept. Unfortunately, these people appear unwilling or unable to confront their part in spreading a damaging, harmful belief. People who use AM are unlikely to experience relationship anxiety about their AM use, that is, to view themselves as damaged goods that others would reject for their use, unless the individual views themselves as an addict. So viewing yourself as an AM addict causes harm by leading you to feel ashamed of yourself and your sexual behaviors, to be afraid of rejection and judgment, and thus to isolate yourself or end up having unsuccessful relationships, caused not by your use, but by your fear that you are broken and powerless and that others will and should reject you for it. In one analysis, the researchers controlled for the effects of both religion and self-perceived AM addiction and found that, for such people, increased use actually decreased relationship anxiety about AM. We can only speculate, and these results might be spurious, as the authors caution against overinterpreting this finding, but it might be that exposure to AM decreases the fear of it and the belief that it is inherently bad. It also teaches one that they can self-manage their sexual feelings. Belief in oneself being an AM addict was a large part of the relationship between religiousness and relationship anxiety. Level of righteousness predicted the likelihood that a person would see themselves as an addict, regardless of the amount used, supporting the building argument that the concept of AM addiction is largely tied to moral and religious feelings about it, and not to actual AM use. But in this study, even religious persons who did not view themselves as addicts had higher relationship anxiety about AM, while people who were not religious and didn't feel addicted to it didn't experience any negative outcomes from their use. Take-home message: if you are religious, you probably shouldn't watch AM. It is likely to lead to you feeling that you're addicted and then developing shame around your identity and your use. That shame and anxiety are going to cause you problems in your life and in your relationships. But AM is not a super stimulus that has an effect on everybody and anybody. The effects vary by person based on things such as their religiousness, history of use, history of sexuality, and relationship experience. If you are a religious person and have already watched and already feel that you're an addict and you're worried about the impact of it on your relationship, then the way to deal with these problems has nothing to do with AM or stopping your use. Religion is very helpful in many people's lives, bringing peace, a sense of meaning, and community. Unfortunately, most religions aren't very good about sex, especially in the modern world where AM is just a click away. Instead, the best best therapeutic strategies involve reducing your shame and self-doubt, helping you to change behaviors as opposed to your identity, increasing your sense of personal self-control, examining your beliefs about sexuality and AM, and learning how to negotiate sexual acceptance within yourself and your relationships. Treat the shame, not the AM. Now we're going to go to the Exponent 2 website for an article by Abby Maxwell Hansen. The purpose of Exponent 2 is to provide a forum for Mormon women to share their life experiences in an atmosphere of trust and acceptance. This exchange allows us to better understand each other and shape the direction of our lives. Our common bond is our connection to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and our commitment to women. We publish Exponent 2 as a living history and celebration of the strength and diversity of women. On to the article. Abby says, I stopped wearing garments about 10 years ago. Discussing my underwear preference isn't something I'd normally do on a public platform like this, but when you're Mormon, you do weird things, and everyone has been talking about their underwear this week. Church leaders seem to have noticed the younger generation not wearing their garments regularly and made adjustments including sleeveless garment tops, likely in the hopes that they'll start wearing them again. I didn't have a medical reason to stop wearing my garments. I just hated them. I didn't have UTIs or yeast infections or skin irritation. Instead, I just had generalized irritation. I always felt hot and frumpy. I wanted to feel pretty and not tug on my undergarments all day long. I'm writing this for the women out there who are like I was, miserable in garments but unable to stop wearing them without a valid excuse not to, and maybe feeling like these new options are a heavenly sign to wait, spend a bunch of money on new tops, and be miserable yet again. I am telling all of you, the single best reason to stop wearing your garments is because you don't want to wear them. But before I go any further, let me be clear, if you are someone who loves wearing garments, I love that for you. I have zero criticism of anyone authentically happy in the underwear of their choice. And I'm so glad that many women out there do like their garments. I'm also super glad that you'll now have more options to make it even easier. Yay. I personally wore garments for many years. I took my first break from wearing garments 5 months into my third and last pregnancy in the spring of 2013. Heat and discomfort finally pushed me past my limit and I purchased regular maternity underwear for the first time in my life. The relief was immediate and I realized how much easier my past pregnancies could have been. I shared this decision with my husband on a trip to southern Utah in our camping trailer, where I apologized and explained my desperate need for a break. In retrospect, it feels crazy that I felt obligated to apologize to a man for making a personal decision about my own underwear while pregnant with his unborn child and camping in hot weather. After that daughter was born, I started to wear garments again. The break had been about 5 months between pregnancy and postpartum recovery. It was hard to put them back on, especially with post-baby weight and bleeding. I renewed my temple recommend at this time and confessed to the bishopric counselor that I'd had a difficult time with my garments in recent months but was wearing them again. Several months later, my recommend was revoked by my bishop when I posted a profile on the Ordained Women website. My husband confronted the bishop about this decision and the bishop told him. We discussed this as a bishopric and decided it was a mistake to have let her have it in the first place because she wasn't wearing her garments properly. A local group of men had called a meeting to discuss if they personally approved of the type of panties I'd worn during pregnancy, then concluded together it was the wrong kind, and because of that, I was unworthy to be in God's presence. Every feeling of ick garments had ever given me increased until it became so overwhelming that I finally admitted out loud the secret I had kept since the week I got married. I hated garments, so I stopped wearing them. Like many women, I remember the very first photos I posted on social media where I was clearly not wearing garments. I made it purposely ambiguous by being on vacation in a place where it might just be a swimsuit cover-up. For the vast majority of Americans, this is a totally appropriate outfit for an adult mother of 3 to be wearing on vacation. Yet these were such scary pictures for me to share. I now know that many women like me can also pinpoint the first garment-free photograph they shared on social media. I believe this is a female milestone nobody really talks about, but so many of us have experienced. If you are considering whether to continue to wear garments or not, I'm here to support you in whatever you choose. It is your body, your relationship to God, and your call. You are going to be okay no matter what. For me personally, not wearing garments gave me back a connection with my body that I had lost for years. Over a decade later, my long hair will sometimes spill onto my bare shoulders and feel so soft and comforting, or a breeze will lift up the back of my shirt to cool me off on a warm day. I pause momentarily when these things happen and remember what it felt like to have an extra layer of material held against my skin by a sweaty white bra. I have a full-length mirror in my closet, and often when I'm getting dressed, I just look at my cute underwear and feel happy. I've successfully switched from underwear equal torture to underwear equal happiness. I've heard women say they don't like the way their bodies look after having babies, gaining or losing weight, or getting older. So wearing garments that cover more skin is fine with them. While that is a reasonable conclusion, I would still suggest trying on some cute underwear no matter what you think you'll look like. I believe a lot of women would actually love their older, heavier postpartum bodies a lot more in underwear that made them feel feminine and beautiful. Again, if garments bring you joy, please keep them. However, if you are struggling daily to put them on like I was, just try taking them off. Maybe wear them some days and not others. Don't wear them on your period. Don't wear them when you want to feel pretty. Wear them only when you're going to church. You get to pick. No loving God that I can fathom would ever be angry at you for doing something that makes you so happy. Abby Maxwell Hansen says a lot more in that article. I would suggest going to the Exponent 2 website and reading it in its entirety. Now we will go to the Ex-Mormon subreddit for some commentary about BYU. This person said, 7 months ago, I was enrolled in the BYU course Religion C333, The Living Prophets. One of the final units was called Blessing of Counsel and Avoiding Apostasy. Early on in the unit, the section Patterns of Apostasy was introduced. The following are phrases in a pattern that leads some church members down a path to apostasy. Awareness of them can help us to sustain the prophets in accordance with our covenants. Phase 1. Murmuring and criticism. Phase 2, rebellion and apostasy. Rebellion has a subheading called Forms of Rebellion, which it identifies as 1, studying the Ark, and 2, inappropriate intellectualism. The inappropriate intellectualism section reads as follows: To be learned is good, declared Jacob, if they hearken unto the counsels of God. 2 Nephi 9:29. When one ignores the inspired teachings of the prophets simply because those prophets lack academic credentials or because their words fly in the face of the accepted theories and views of the world, that person is, in a way, rebelling against the wisdom of God and relying on the arm of flesh. When a person criticizes the teachings of the prophets by pitting intellect against inspiration, he or she is engaging in inappropriate intellectualism that will ultimately lead to apostasy if the intellective quest for truth is not guided by the Spirit of the Lord. They then say, I couldn't believe what I was reading. The church was seriously telling me that using my brain was early stage apostasy. It was from that moment that I gave myself permission to investigate my shelf items from sources outside the church. I got my degree, found LDS discussions, and the rest is history. Since then, I have discovered that back in 1993, Boyd K. Packer stated that religion faced the greatest threat from 3 groups: feminists, homosexuals, and intellectuals. I'm beyond bewildered that the church upholds that statement by letting it be taught in this course. What's even crazier to me is that I found that quote in the church newsroom article announcing Packer's death in 2015. It's essentially his obituary, and all of the quotes he could be remembered by, they choose to highlight this one. And they did so in its own paragraph without any segue, transition, or context before or after. It seems to me that they were probably prepping the members for the November 2015 policy. It's wild. And now we will go to the church newsroom, where we will read part of an article about a meeting that recently took place. It says, in a meeting with local leaders from 6 stakes in the north part of Saratoga Springs, Utah, President Jeffrey R. Holland, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, bore witness of the Lord Jesus Christ and promised that as people increase their faith in him, they will be able to help others come unto him as well. Bear your witness, he said, the power of God and the virtue of heaven will come. Faith in God unlocks his power, President Holland said, quoting President Russell M. Nelson in April 2021 General Conference, who taught, the Lord does not require perfect faith for us to access his perfect power, but he does ask us to believe. He just had to get in a President Nelson quote. President Holland said every teacher and leader in the church needs to bear their testimony often, pray often, and be in the scriptures with their class or quorum or congregation. We want them to understand we are believers. President Holland was joined at the meetings by Elder Ulysses Soros of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, Elder Brian K. Taylor, General Authority 70 and second counselor in the Utah Area Presidency, and Sister Amy A. Wright, first counselor in the Primary General Presidency. The meetings were conducted by Elder Jason C. Jensen in Area 70 in the Utah area. Anyone with a calling to lead or teach must strive to help those they serve have a spiritual experience in each meeting. The fundamentals of prayer and being in the scriptures will provide the spiritual ignition that will lead them on for the rest of their lives. Did he really say lead them on? That's a term people use in dating when someone isn't being honest about their feelings. How do we get people to want to come, to feel, to serve? At the heart of that, always at the heart of that, is a spiritual experience. It's true, and I think it goes along with the article that I read from BYU. People don't join the church because of their intellect, they join it because of their feelings. And Holland, he knows that. President Holland recounted that when he was deeply ill and at times unconscious in the hospital, the late President M. Russell Ballard, then the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, went nearly every day to see him, often giving him priesthood blessings. When President Ballard was told that it appeared President Holland was not going to live, he said, "We will just have to keep praying and exercise our faith." President Holland said he's still alive because of that faith, and because of the faith and the power of all the prayers from people all around the world, including those in the chapel in Saratoga Springs. So does that mean when people pray for their children who have cancer to stay alive and the child succumbs to cancer that there just wasn't enough faith? And what makes President Holland so special that faith got to save him? "I love you for praying and for believing," he told them. Then he punctuated his next words with his hands on the table in front of him. "Be a believer and miracles come and power comes." It wouldn't be an Elder Holland talk now, would it, without some sort of passionate, angry rant at the end. At the end of the conference, he blessed them to have every righteous desire of their hearts, whether now or in eternity. It will happen, he promised, especially in regarding their children and receiving answers to their prayers for them. He's trying to comfort all of the parents who are lamenting because their kids have left the church by saying they could rejoin in the eternities. Saying any part of the Lord's plan can be taken care of after we die gives the prophets an out when they make revelations or prophecies that don't happen, because then they can just say, "Oh, well, God will do it later after we die." It's quite convenient. And today we will finish up with this little bit of wisdom from an unknown source that says, if submission were natural to women, there wouldn't be thousands of sermons every day reminding women to submit, because nature doesn't need reminders to run its course. These reminders exist because indoctrination depends on constant reinforcement to keep harmful ideologies alive. And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.